What's up, everybody, and you are listening to the best of the Media Mike radio show. I am your host, the Media Mike Speaks, sponsored by New Justice Media, where we are the voice of the everyday citizen. The time is now 41 minutes past the hour here in the Lone Star State, so let's get to it. One of my subscribers sent me the story. All right, people, times are changing. Now, I would like to know, first of all, why was something like this put in place a long time ago? Why was something like this here in the first place? Now, it could be a good reason. I just would like to know. And the United States is not the only country that does this. I know in certain parts of I think. Is it Thailand, or Thailand, as they say? You can't own land there unless, because you're not a citizen. They won't allow you to do it. So each country has its own rules. So here in these United States, they are considering bending those rules. As you saw in the title. Yes, good people, they're looking at this. You no longer need citizenship to become a police officer. Now, it is not in all states or cities, of course, but it is spreading. As you see here, one person says, non-citizens with legal status can enlist in our nation's armed forces and risk their lives in combat. But in most states, they cannot be employed as police officers, which is true because I've served with a lot of individuals that were, I would say, immigrants, but they were, non-citizen, but they had legal status, and I served alongside them in the United States Army and Air Force. So yeah. Now, dozens of police chiefs and sheriffs, alarmed at the shrinking numbers of qualified recruits, want to see the long-standing prohibition lifted. And that's a good question. Why can't they fill the ranks is a good question. What's going on? Could it be since the George Floyd? Could it be the economy? Could it be the backlash of law enforcement today? Is it because there is a war on our nation's men and women in blue? I don't know. But be that as it may, Tom Manger, he's police chief in Montgomery County, Maryland, a suburb of Washington, D.C. He quotes, "I don't think someone's citizenship is indicative in any way of someone's suitability to be a police officer." Now, Manger co-chairs a national task force of policing executives, lobbying legislators to change the law in Maryland and elsewhere. So he's one of the ones that are pushing this to where we can open the door to non-citizenships to work in law enforcement. Non-citizens, I would say. Now, because, this movement is part of a broader recognition that the difficulty in recruiting police is not just a result of low pay and bad morale, the so-called Ferguson effect, and I guess that too, but of numerous obstacles thrown up by politicians or police themselves. Okay, so I can say that could be a long contributing factor to the issue. You have politicians or police in certain positions who put these obstacles in the way. Maybe they're trying to protect those natural born citizens of these United States. Because jurisdiction by jurisdiction, those barriers are being challenged, often successfully instead of unsuccessfully today. The article goes on to also read, a growing number of law enforcement agencies will now accept applicants who admit past drug use or have arrest records for low-level offenses, who lack college degrees, and who sport tattoos or facial hair. Well, some agencies have already doing that, and low-level offenses, meaning misdemeanors. I would say misdemeanors. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't want to get on Memphis, because Memphis, they kind of like they set the bar a little bit too low. But frustrated cops say they are still being handcuffed by arcane state laws and slow to respond to state oversight commissions. Yeah, because, this comes down to the state legislator. You have to lobby here. And if you have a growing number of law enforcement agencies with paid lobbyists, they can block a lot of this, which is probably what's been going on. Now, in Massachusetts, officers and police applicants who find themselves disqualified even if they smoke cigarettes, even off duty. What? You know what? I wouldn't even want to be a cop if that was the case. And I've been a cop before. I don't even want to be a cop. If you're going to say to me, if I smoked a cigarette, I'm unqualified, that's going beyond strict. I mean, going way above and beyond the civic code. Don't you think? I mean, really? So if you're a smoker, you are unqualified to be a police officer in Massachusetts. I don't even see. It's just a wonder if they still have police officers there. Now, Matthew Starr, an Army veteran who had been deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan, was rejected by the police department in Medfield, Massachusetts, near Boston, after a police officer secretly photographed Starr getting out of his pickup to smoke. Starr appealed to the state civil service commission and lost. So you mean to tell me you had an investigator following this guy? You talk about a background check. What? Is that Massachusetts? Isn't that the Paul Revere ride? Or is that New England? Or Delaware? I don't know. My history is a little hazy here on that. So anyway, Mr. Starr here is upset, and I would be too. He's an Army vet, been deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. He goes on to quote, "It doesn't make sense to claim there's a shortage when you aren't going to hire someone who smokes." Now, he's now a 7th grade public school teacher, good people. He says being a cop is a tough job. There's no money. Well, there is money, there's no respect in it, to a certain degree. And these asinine laws don't help either, unquote. I do agree, sir. I would go somewhere else. But maybe he wants to stay there, but hey, Massachusetts is also one of several states where women are challenging physical requirements that impede the hiring and retention of female officers. Critics argue the rules have little to do with the demands of policing. You know what? That's just those men in Massachusetts have a different way of thinking, and that's why I've never been to Massachusetts or Boston, Boston, as they say. I don't care to go either. So hey, beat it as it may. It is what it is. Now, policing experts point out that law enforcement is historically slow to adapt to shifts in the cultural norms. Long after contact lenses were commonplace, police forces demanded 20/20 vision. Until the 1980s, it was common for law enforcement agencies to shun certain cops on grounds that there would be more. I know what the issue is, but I just don't really want to say a lot of times. You know what the issue is here. 'Cause look, it's 90% Caucasian male, pretty much. And we already know how they feel about certain individuals. That's true. So they made the rules here. I mean, you have an old line of thinking, until a lot of these older, good old boy things die out, that's the only time you're going to see change. You're going to have a new wave of cop come in, a new wave of law enforcement officer. It's just what it is to clean all this up. But now, according to a 2016 report by the U.S. Justice Department, more than 40 states have statutes, regulations, or administrative rules in place that restrict the ability of law enforcement agencies to employ non-citizens. The report, a survey of diversity in policing, notes that this requirement may prevent a considerable number of racial and ethnic minorities, many of whom have valuable foreign language skills, from being hired by law enforcement agencies, unquote, which is true. America is becoming more and more diverse by the month. And English, I hate to say it, it's just not going to be the top language. Eventually, it's going to be there, but you do have a lot of people coming into the country that speak different languages, or don't really speak English. And you're going to need to translate. You're going to need a translator. The Bureau, the federal government pretty much does this. They hire a lot of people who are translators. And law enforcement, however, I don't know. It is what it is. Justin Levitt, a Justice Department official in the Obama administration, supervised discrimination cases against police departments that banned legal immigrants in the few states that allowed them to be hired as cops. Levitt questioned why legislators continue to prevent police chiefs from employing who they want. These laws would tell local law enforcement that you have to hire someone less qualified based on the fact that they were born here, Levitt said, unquote. Good point. Until they lobby. But it's changing, I could see. It is. California has passed a bill that is going to allow that, where it's California. So, but they're leading the way. You have cities like Chicago, and you have Memphis, you have states like Utah and, and California. So it is spreading. Now, Tennessee in 2015 amended its laws to open police recruitment to non-citizens with military service. After the police chief in Nashville rallied legislators. Didn't I tell you legislators? He quotes, having a cross-section of Nashville serving on the police department enhances our knowledge and appreciation of cultures so we can better serve our population. That's according to Nashville Police Chief Steve Anderson after the law was changed. See, he understands. I told you, you're going to need a new wave or a law enforcement personnel who thinks way outside the box, like there is no box. Now, not all jurisdictions in the state are following the reform. The Memphis Police Department still requires its applicants to be citizens. Okay, I misspoke on Memphis. I thought, now Tennessee is different, Nashville, but they lowered the bar in this past incident. Now, when the failure to comply with state law was brought to the city's attention, spokeswoman Ursula Madden said Memphis officials were in the process of updating the language, unquote. Okay, so they are considering it. They are. Now, one beneficiary of the new policy was Omar Barrios, a legal immigrant from Mexico, but not yet a citizen, now a deputy. He works at Denver's downtown detention center. Nobody asks me if I am a resident or a citizen, he says. I do my job like anyone else, unquote. Well, Omar, no one's going to ask you that. They're not going to do that, sir. They just, you're a police officer. That's what it is. I think New York has had something like this. I think they have an auxiliary police force, but I think you could have legal status, something like that, if I'm not mistaken. So anyway, let me know what you think about this in light of the new incident that happened in Memphis. Will hiring non-citizens solve some of those problems of police brutality? Or is something like this, is this considering lowering the bar too far. Until next time, this is your guy, Mr. Educator, Mr. Communicator, Mr. Free Thinker. Subscribe, share, and like to keep me rocking on the mic. Have a good night.